I think he put some of the things in context that that it was a national organization, and because it was a national organization, we had like a network all over the country, which was promoting the Chicano movement in all different cities, not just in East LA, but also throughout California. For example, in California, we had like 40 chapters, and the rest, we had another 20 chapters around the other states. Let me start at the beginning. Glad to see you all here, and I'd like to welcome you all. Also, one of the reasons why we have this important event is because I submitted some archives to the school here, and the archives are important because it even goes into some of the FBI records, which they talk about us, bad about us. They talk about Ralph Ramirez and me trying to knock down the fence over at Garfield High School during the 1968 walkouts. You know, they talk about Carlos Motel, they talk bad about Carlos Motel. Anyway, you know, the beginning of the movement, I guess you can just kind of go over lightly how it all began. I think it was just the fact that some of the leaders in the Brown Berets had been victims and witnesses to so much suffering in our community. And this is what got us to get involved, because we saw these things happening to our community. And we were tired of being harassed. All of us were cruisers to some degree on Winter Boulevard. And we were always getting harassed by the sheriff or by the CHP. So when the organization came about, we kind of got around to begin to organize our community. I began with David Salcedo. His name was Innocent. David Salcedo, we used to play rock and roll guitar together at Roosevelt High School. And also Rob was with us over at Roosevelt High School. And I kind of think that's what kind of began at Roosevelt High School, where we started to see what was really going on. One summer, when I was like about 15 years old, I was with David Salcedo. We were looking for a summer job, and we said, well, let's go to St. Vincent de Paul. Maybe they'll hire us, camp concerts in the summertime or something like that. So we went to St. Vincent de Paul, and the Catholics and all turned us down. So we went to the next place. We went to the Episcopal Church. They said there's another church out there. Just asked them if they want to hire some counselors. So we went to the Episcopal Church, and we met Virginia Ram there, who was the director of programs, and then we met Father Lewis, John B. Lewis, who ended up becoming the Pope of the church, and not the Pope, but the national Archbishop of Episcopal Church in the United States. Anyway. So he hired us to work as counselors, and we through him and through other organizations we met. I also worked at the Boys and Girls Club over in Lincoln Heights, and I met Richard Alatorre, and Richard Alatorre had a project called Young Participation for Community Projects. Anyway, he was looking for the community services. Richard Alatorre, I really thought Richard Alatorre was a civil rights leader, but it didn't turn out that way. Anyway, he got us, so he got me involved with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, because they needed some Chicanos to sit on that board. And the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, I was in high school at the time, was established by Mayor Sam Yorty, and the idea was to establish these Mayor's Youth Advisory Councils all over the country to give youth a chance to talk about some of the issues in their community. And anyway, we were able to, I ran for also Moctezuma Esparza. He was a parliamentarian, and I became president. When I was elected president, all of a sudden I look out the door, out the window at the City Hall, and people are demonstrating, and 150 young Republicans are demonstrating outside the window, because I got elected. And I asked people, why are they demonstrating because I got elected? They said, they're demonstrating because you got elected because you're a Chicano. I said, okay. So I talked to Moctezuma Esparza. I said, Moctezuma Esparza, this election was fair, wasn't it? It was a fair election. And then Moctezuma Esparza, that fancy talk, according to parliamentary procedure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, this was a fair election. You want fair and square. So I became the president of the first Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for the city of Los Angeles, and I was thinking about 16 years old, something like that. Anyway, that kind of just led to other things. I had gone to a coffee house at USC, and because I worked with different organizations. I was always looking for jobs. I did work for the Boys Club. I worked for the Teen Post, and at the Teen Post, I had Teen Post at USC at the Unitarian Church, And downstairs at USC, at the Unitarian Church, there was a coffee house, called the Cheshire Cat. And so I used to go sometimes spend weekends at that church over at USC. And they had this coffee house called the Cheshire Cat. I said, man, this is great. I said, this is what we need. We need a coffee house in East LA, so we can hang out, have a place to hang out. Anyway, so I talked to Virginia Ram about, hey, I want to put a coffee house in East LA. She says, well, you better write a proposal then. I said, well, how do you write a proposal? She said, well, it's real simple, purpose and method, write the philosophy, write these things down. I said, well, I can write that. So I wrote a proposal, and I submitted to the Southern California Council of Churches, and the proposal was accepted by the Southern California Council of Churches. Jack Pratt was the head of it at the time. And he said, yeah, so he gave us the money to open the coffee, at least for the rent and all the bills. And so we got the money to open the coffee house, and the name of the coffee house was La Piraña. Now this was before the Brown Berets had began. Okay, and before the Brown Berets had began, we developed an organization called Young Citizens for Community Action. This was with Richard Torre, Moctezuma was in there, Vicky Castro was in that particular group. And so all of a sudden, the group kind of started to split up into two, for many reasons, and I told Ralph. I remember telling him, "Oh, Ralph, we gotta get more militant now. We gotta get more on the ball. Young Citizens for Community Action don't look right. So I talked to Ralph and a couple other people about changing the name from Young Citizens for Community Action to Young Chicanos for Community Action. And so I said, Ralph, can we do this? Can we get the votes? Ralph said, yeah, we can get the votes. So we got the votes, and we changed the name from Young Citizens for Community Action to Young Chicanos for Community Action. Okay, so then we got the coffee house, right? Okay, so the coffee house is open. We had like two different grand openings. The first one nobody showed up. We had another grand opening. Okay, we had this wonderful coffee house called the Piraña Coffee House, and that's where the Brown Berets began to develop. After we had gone through these steps of converting nice organizations into other organizations to the Brown Berets. So once it became Young Chicanos for Community Action, okay, a lot of people left, like Paula Cristosa, she left, she couldn't handle the Chicano thing. Vicky Castro left, Moctezuma Esparza left, and so it was, so it was just some of the main people, myself, Ralph, and so we went ahead and we were Young Chicanos for Community Action, and then we decided to take it one step further. What happened was Virginia Ram, once again she comes into the picture here. They're having a rummage sale at the Episcopal Church. And so there was a blue beret, on the table. She was signing blue beret. I told her, I want that beret. I remember Ralph was saying he says he wanted the beret too. Because we had been down in San Jose, and the bench out, they're called Humas at the time, bench out from San Jose used to wear blue berets, So finally I convinced Virginia to give me the beret. So I got the brown beret. I don't know if we were fighting for the beret, but anyway, I got the brown beret, the blue beret. I was wearing the blue beret. I said, no, this thing is not right, So I thought about it. A couple of days went by, went downtown, and I asked the man, at the hat shop, General Hat Shop downtown at 7th and Main. I said, do you got any brown berets? He goes, yeah, I got some brown berets. I said, I want one. I said, let me have a brown beret. So he gave me a brown beret, sold me a brown beret. It was a couple of dollars. And at that point, I was wearing a brown beret, and I was, at the time I was working for another job. Sal Castro was the director of Minority Elementary School Playground director. And I told Sal Castro, can I get a job there, So I was running college and looking for after school jobs. I had to pay for my lowrider car and other stuff. So I told him, so he said, yeah, you can work for the playground. So I was working for Sal Castro at Magnolia Elementary School. And I was wearing my brown beret that I bought downtown. Okay, so I'm walking around with this brown beret, and one of these little kids says, hey, brown beret. I go, what, man? He says, you're a brown beret? I go, yeah, Anyway, so the idea of brown beret was already set in my mind, so I went back to the coffee house and talked to everybody about changing the name from Young Chicanos for Community Action on a consensus. People thought it was a good idea. And that's one of the successes of the Brown Berets was we always discussed things on the consensus. Whenever I made a move or a decision, it was talk to the commanders first, see what they think, and then move with the decision of the consensus. It's always like that, all the way through. Even throughout the Southwest, when we organized all these different chapters all over the country. was always on consensus, leadership on consensus. Anyway, at that time, we continued on to organize, so we became Brown Berets. One of the first things that happened, when we were at the coffee house, so we changed it into the Brown Berets. And what happened was Danny Hernandez got hung at the Eastside Sheriff Station. And so, we had a lot of people were just sitting around the coffee house. We were just sitting around there. And it's just a regular coffee house day. And then all of a sudden, we're going to go pick at the sheriff station. Let's go pick at the sheriff station. And so some of the people, there weren't that many of us, but I bought a dozen. I went and bought a dozen Brown Berets and brought them to the coffee house. So we just started handing them out to the customers. Put them on, we're going to go pick it. We went to go pick it at the sheriff station, right? And we were picketing down there. And sometimes we would pick it, but sometimes we would run in circles. I think that's called dragon march, when you actually run in a circle with picket signs. And so we went down to the sheriff's station, and that was the first pickets that ever took place in East LA to protest the murder of Danny Hernandez and the murder of many Chicanos that took place during those times. There's really so much history to discuss. I don't know if I can discuss all of it, but I will discuss some of it. I think the people in the Brown Berets who came into the Brown Berets, there were a lot of people who were willing to sacrifice, understanding that even though we did suffer in our sacrifice, all of us, I think, all three of us, Ralph, Ramirez, Carlos, myself, I think all of us went to jail at least, 10 times? At least 10 times, right? Not more. Anyway, the cops were on us, they were on our backs. And it was so bad that I'd come out of my front door at my mom's house, and there would be a police car parked in front of my house, But not just that, but also our family and our friends were involved. My sister, for example, Arlene Sanchez, I noticed her picture. She was in one of these books, photography books, where she's carrying a sign that says Chicano Power. I don't know if you've seen that book. Anyways, it's around here in the library, produced by this organization. Anyway, my sister Arlene Sanchez recruited a bunch of girls to join the organization. And the coffee house became the center of organizing. One of the first things that took place was the walkouts, I guess, one of the most significant events. And I think that's something that we knew and that we understood, was that events were like history. That was our science. Our science was a political science. Our science was a movement science, where we began to understand that if we can create events, then we could change history. And so our eye was on events, to make events happen. Of course, in all history is always shaped by either battles or by leaders or people who create events. So in the creation of events, one of the first events that we began to look at were the conditions in the schools. Several years before, I'm talking about all the way back to 1960, before the Brown Berets. In 1966, we circulated, when I was in high school, we circulated a petition to all the schools. It's in the movie Walk Out. When the movie Walk Out, remember the students, they circulated a petition to the students. And I remember we were writing these questions to give the students, because we were doing a survey. And one of the questions that we were going to put on here was, are you lonely? Anyway, it's just one of the questions that we thought about, because we had to actually write these questions, 20 questions, a survey we circulated all through the school district. We were going to take the survey to Dr. Novel. And then Dr. Novel was there, and he was able to bring the survey before the school district to look at all of the major problems that the students were facing. Many of the same problems that the students face today. I think the significant thing is that we're persistent in what we did. We were persistent in a way that we knew we had to do this particular job that had to be done, and we were very serious. We didn't want just a little bit. We figured that applying pressure, to exert force was to apply pressure. That's what it says in the Brown Book. That we were there to exert force, to apply pressure, to make changes occur. And this is what we did, and this is what we were good at. Many times they didn't like the pressure. Many times we went to jail as a result of the pressure. An example of that was the arrest after the school walkouts. I think the significant thing about the Brown Berets was that we were, to some degree, a regiment. And when I say a regiment, we were not 100% military, but we did have some kind of rank and file system. You know. Some people complain, the guys, they're too strict, or sometimes people complain that, the Brown Berets, that they're you can't do this and you can't do that. But the reality was that the Brown Berets were not a democratic organization. I mean, we had meetings, and you could say whatever you wanted to say, but when it came to the formal command, it was the consensus of opinion that to make a move to complete a mission came first, and so that's what we did all over and over again. Consensus on the mission and follow through on the mission, and the sacrifice took place. So many events. I can't even cover all of the events that took place over something like 6 or 7 year period. It was always constantly crisis. There was always a crisis at the Brown Beret office. There was always a crisis in our community. And I think that's what motivated the movement. The walkouts, for example. The walkouts started at the Beret Coffee House. A number of student organizations came there. UMass was there. A number of different student organizations and even some clubs were there. South Castle was there. We were all Brown Berets were there. We had a meeting at the coffee house, and we decided that there was a need to follow up on the survey that we gave to LA Unified School District, that there was a need to apply pressure on the school system, and that the only way we could apply pressure with the LA school system was to make walkout, to make demands. At the meeting, we met at the coffee house, and this was something like in January of 1968. We met at the coffee house to write up some demands, and then we understood that we were going to walk out the schools in June of 1968. What happened was, we felt, at least the Brown Berets felt, that June was too late. Everybody voted to walk out in June. But the Brown Berets, we felt that none of the schools were ready to walk out now, because we had this national organization. We had this students in all the high schools in East LA. So we felt that it was time. It was time to walk out. So what happened was, as soon as Wilson walked out in 1968, this was just at the end of April. It's March?
No, March 1st.
Okay. When Wilson walked out, that's when gave us a signal that no, the students are ready. They walked out because they had a play, they were turned down to do the play, and so they walked. So they walked out of Wilson. So I said, well, there must be time. I talked to Joe Rosso once again, back again on the consensus. I talked to Joe Rosso and several other Brown Berets. I said, should we go ahead and move the walkout to take place, because it was hot. It was spontaneous. So since it was a spontaneous feeling for the students to walk out, since we were Brown Berets, we just had to go ahead and give the order and make the decision. And that's what I was good at mostly when things were tough and things were rough. When somebody had to make a decision with consensus, I would make a lot of decisions to make things happen. Because that's what I was there. I mean, I was the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has chapters, okay, has groups, has organizations. What does the Prime Minister do? Sit on his butt? No, the Prime Minister makes decisions to make action. And that's what we would do over and over again. We would make action. Back in the walkouts, some of the events during the moratoriums, the occupation of Catalina Island, the Caravanas, some of the marches. So action after action after action. That's what the Brown Berets were about. Okay. Anyway, there's just so much history to cover, and I really could not cover it right now, even in an hour or two. I think I was covered during an 11th hour period. I mean, I talked to Virginia Espino, and she interviewed me for like 12 hours right under the lab on the Brown Beret history, because there's so much involved. And you can see that through UCLA oral history. The information is in there. And you can also see the information on these books here for $20, forwarded by Dr. Armando Morales from UCLA. He helped me to publish these books. And before Dr. Armando Morales died, he told me to try to get these books out to the people. Don't charge too much. So I'm only charging $20 for these books. Anyway, I just like to say that before I go on, that it took a lot of sacrifice and a lot of know-how and a lot of administration. A lot of people think, oh, Brown Berets, you go out there, be proud. No, there was administration involved. There was management involved. Okay, that's where I would come in. Money had to be raised. You know, I had to raise the money for the events and for the organization. Telephone calls cost a lot. We used to run telephone bills, unbelievable. Cost money. You know, so I was always raising money, and I was always organizing, and always traveling, organizing chapters. You know, so that was a lot of work, a lot of stress. I don't know how I did it. Maybe I don't know, but I did it. You know, and with help with people like Ralph Ramirez, you know, who was out there dealing with it, also dealing and organizing the national organizations. We had the East Side chapter, but we also had to deal with the national organization and the national picture of making things happen and making things occur. Okay, thank you.